This video will contain 2 stories that you can listen to while you lay in bed. It will feature rain sounds and occasional thunder as background noise. I hope you enjoy the stories and have a great night's sleep. The night air hung heavy with anticipation as Johannes Blackwood, taxi driver by trade, trudged through the desolate streets. His world was one of practicality, of fares and fleeting conversations with strangers. Yet on this night, an enigma slipped through the letter slot of his apartment door. A black seal on cream parchment, an invitation to something beyond the scope of his rational understanding. The letter, adorned with delicate calligraphy, whispered secrets only Johannes could comprehend. Its words painted a picture of a secluded mansion, nestled within the bosom of an ancient forest. A mansion with a past steeped in shadows, where the winds carried echoes of anguish. His skepticism, a sturdy fortress in the face of the unknown, quivered under the weight of curiosity. The taxi driver found himself drawn to the promise of secrets, his footsteps guided by an invisible hand toward the heart of the foreboding forest. The forest swallowed him whole, each step deeper, echoing the pulse of his heart. The shadows played tricks, dancing on the periphery of his vision, teasing with glimpses of unseen creatures. Moonlight filtered through the dense canopy above, casting ethereal patterns on the path ahead. And there it stood, the mansion, an embodiment of time's relentless march. Its silhouette loomed against the backdrop of twisted branches and mist, draped foliage, a monolith standing sentinel to centuries of secrets. The air clung to Johannes, thick with a palpable tension, as if the very fabric of reality shifted in acknowledgement of his arrival. He approached the grand entrance, a heavy door adorned with elaborate carvings, each groove etched with the weight of forgotten tales. As Johannes crossed the threshold, the mansion seemed to inhale, enveloping him in a suffocating embrace. The air within hummed with a symphony of whispers, voices from a distant past beckoning him further into the labyrinth of shadows. The flickering candlelight revealed intricate details of a bygone era, the faded grandeur of ornate furnishings, dust-covered portraits staring with vacant eyes, and a pervasive scent of aged wood and neglect. Johannes felt a pull, a magnetic force drawing him deeper into the heart of the mansion, as if the walls themselves yearned to divulge their long-buried secrets. In the dim light, he found a spiral staircase, its steps creaking beneath the weight of untold stories. As Johannes ascended, the air thickened with a tension that clung to his skin. The whispers, now distinct and urgent, echoed through the cavernous halls, revealing fragments of a history best left forgotten. His skepticism wavered, eclipsed by the enigmatic allure of the mansion's mysteries. Johannes Blackwood, taxi driver turned unwitting seeker, embarked on a journey that blurred the boundaries between the tangible and the spectral. His fate entwined with the shadows that whispered of a darkness waiting to be unveiled. The moon cast feeble rays through the dense canopy, painting the forest in silvery hues as Johannes Blackwood approached the mansion. The gravel crunched beneath his boots, echoing through the stillness of the night. The mansion, standing as a relic of forgotten nightmares, loomed ahead like a sentinel of shadows. As Johannes stepped over the threshold, a cold draft whispered through the corridors, causing the ancient floorboards to creak in protest. The air, heavy with the scent of decay, seemed to cling to him like a shroud. The flickering candlelight danced along the walls, casting grotesque shadows that seemed to writhe with a life of their own. In a forgotten corner, Johannes discovered a dusty library, its shelves laden with decaying tomes and forgotten lore. The spines of the books groaned as he slid them from their resting places, revealing tales of vanished souls and malevolent forces that had made the mansion their eternal abode. Whispers of the Whisperer, an entity manipulating the very fabric of reality, echoed through the passages of time. As Johannes delved deeper into the manuscripts, he sensed an unseen presence, a spectral audience observing his every move. The air grew colder, and the whispers became more tangible, like the tendrils of a shadowy hand reaching out from the ethereal abyss. The dialogue between Johannes and the malevolent force became a macabre dance, the words dripping with an ancient malevolence that sent shivers down his spine. Through the flickering candlelight, Johannes glimpsed fleeting apparitions, phantoms of the past condemned to replay their final moments. Their silent screams and pleading eyes seemed to accuse him of trespassing into a realm best left undisturbed. The very walls of the mansion seemed to breathe with a sinister pulse, as if absorbing the fear that lingered in the air. Johannes, torn between skepticism and a growing unease, wandered into the mansion's heart. There, a grand ballroom lay frozen in time, adorned with faded tapestries and broken chandeliers. The echoes of music long silenced whispered through the air, painting a haunting image of a bygone era. Dialogue between Johannes and the Whisperer intensified, revealing the malevolent force's hunger for fear and despair. The very shadows that clung to the walls seemed to coalesce, taking on grotesque forms that mocked the living. In the stillness of the mansion, a symphony of spectral whispers reached a crescendo, the very walls seeming to pulsate with the heartbeats of the lost. As Johannes, gripped by a sense of impending doom, continued his exploration, the mansion seemed to sigh, releasing echoes of the past into the present. The boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred, and the thin line of skepticism he clung to began to fray. The chapter closed with Johannes, standing at the precipice, staring into the abyss of the mansion's dark history, unsure if he could ever escape the shadows that clung to him like a curse. The air within the mansion hung heavy with the weight of centuries, old secrets, and Johannes could feel it settle on his skin like an invisible shroud. As he ventured deeper into its echoing corridors, the walls seemed to close in, a living entity conspiring to keep its mysteries intact. The creaking floorboards beneath Johannes' hesitant steps whispered tales of long-forgotten echoes. Each footfall, a resonating reminder that he was a trespasser in a realm where shadows held dominion. The flickering candlelight cast dancing specters on the walls, their spectral waltz mirroring the unseen forces that manipulated the very essence of the mansion. The taxi driver's senses heightened as the air turned colder, and a shiver crawled up his spine. The silence was deafening, save for the distant whispers that seemed to emerge from the very walls themselves. "Johannes," the disembodied voice murmured, a seductive yet ominous invitation that sent a shudder through his core. His eyes darted from corridor to corridor, searching for the source of the whispers. The mansion seemed to breathe, its walls pulsating with an otherworldly heartbeat that synchronized with Johannes' own anxious rhythm. The taxi driver's grip tightened on the flickering candle, its feeble glow offering little solace in the sea of encroaching darkness. As Johannes turned a corner, he encountered a series of faded portraits lining the walls. Each gaze, frozen in time, followed him with a quiet accusation. The people in the paintings seemed to harbor secrets, their painted eyes holding an ancient knowledge that transcended the limits of the canvas. The dialogue with the Whisperer intensified, its voice now a haunting symphony that resonated within Johannes' mind. "You seek answers," it murmured, the words slithering through the crevices of his thoughts. "But beware, for not all truths are meant to be unveiled." The taxi driver's skepticism wavered in the face of the supernatural. He questioned the very fabric of reality as the mansion toyed with his perception. Shadows danced on the periphery of his vision, taking shape and then dissolving into nothingness. Every step forward felt like a descent into the abyss, the mansion revealing its malevolent nature, like a predatory beast, toying with its prey. Johannes, caught in the tendrils of the Whisperer's influence, wrestled with his own sanity as the walls seemed to close in further, suffocating him in a labyrinth of uncertainty. In the suffocating silence, Johannes became acutely aware of his racing heartbeat, the only sound that resisted the oppressive quiet. The mansion's grip tightened, an invisible force pressing against his chest, urging him to succumb to the inexorable pull of the unknown. As Johannes navigated the twisting corridors, he couldn't escape the unsettling feeling that the mansion itself was alive, a sentient entity with a malevolent agenda. The dialogue with the Whisperer became a disorienting cacophony, a chorus of voices blending into a chorus of despair that echoed through the hollow halls. And so, Johannes continued his perilous journey, teetering on the precipice of revelation and madness. The mansion's grip tightened, its secrets lurking in the shadows, waiting to be unearthed by the intrepid taxi driver who dared to challenge the veil of the unknown. Johannes stood at the threshold of his own apprehensions, the mansion's shadows stretching like ghostly fingers, beckoning him into the abyss. Whispers, barely audible, danced around him as he ventured further, each step echoing in the eerie silence. The air clung to him, laden with a palpable dread that threatened to choke reason from his lungs. The mansion, once a stoic structure, now seemed to leer at him, its walls whispering secrets only the damned could comprehend. Johannes felt the pull, an irresistible force, drawing him deeper into the heart of the malevolent enigma. His flashlight flickered, casting dancing shadows that merged with the creeping darkness. Johannes pressed on, determined yet haunted by the labyrinth of his own doubts. A portrait on the wall seemed to follow his every move, the eyes of long-dead inhabitants staring into his soul. The dialogue with the Whisperer intensified, a spectral voice intertwining with his thoughts. "Johannes," it whispered, a serpent's hiss echoing through the desolate corridors. "Do you not feel the weight of your fears? They feed me, fueling the darkness that cradles this mansion." Johannes, caught between skepticism and a rising tide of terror, tightened his grip on his sanity. "Who are you?" he demanded, the words trembling on his lips. The air thickened, and the walls seemed to close in, squeezing the truth from the very fabric of the mansion. The Whisperer's response echoed with a malevolence that sent shivers down Johannes' spine. "I am the ancient murmur within the walls, the essence of nightmares and the harbinger of forgotten sins. You are but a vessel for the fear I crave." As Johannes traversed the labyrinthine corridors, the mansion played cruel tricks on his senses. Doors materialized where none existed, leading to disorienting loops of reality. Unearthly whispers urged him to turn back, to flee the encroaching darkness. But his relentless curiosity spurred him forward. His journey through the mansion mirrored a descent into madness. Shadows seemed to writhe on the walls, taking form and then dissolving into nothingness. The Whisperer reveled in Johannes' internal struggle, orchestrating a symphony of fear that echoed through the cold, desolate spaces. In the heart of the mansion, Johannes found a chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. The walls, adorned with sinister symbols, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. The Whisperer's voice resonated, weaving a narrative of tragedy and despair that seeped into Johannes' consciousness. As the climax approached, Johannes faced a choice: succumb to the consuming darkness or defy the malevolent force that sought to claim him. The dialogue with the Whisperer reached its zenith, a cacophony of haunting revelations that threatened to shatter his fragile resolve. In the chilling crescendo, Johannes grappled with the unknown, a lone figure in a mansion bound by the secrets of centuries past. The air crackled with tension, and the shadows whispered their final secrets, leaving Johannes teetering on the precipice of his own fears. The air within the mansion clung to Johannes like a suffocating shroud. Shadows, darker than the darkest night, seemed to writhe and dance along the walls as he descended further into the abyss. The oppressive weight of the mansion's history pressed upon him, and the air resonated with the haunting whispers of those who had succumbed to its malevolence. Johannes moved cautiously through the dimly lit corridors, his footsteps echoing eerily against the cold, ancient stone. The walls seemed to close in, their secrets hidden in the cracks and crevices that bore witness to centuries of suffering. The mansion's influence was palpable, a malevolent force that seeped into the very fabric of the building. As Johannes ventured deeper, the shadows took on a life of their own, twisting and contorting into grotesque shapes that played tricks on his sanity. Whispers echoed through the air, disembodied voices murmuring tales of despair and woe. The dialogue between Johannes and the Whisperer intensified, the unseen force exploiting every vulnerability, every fear that lay dormant in his soul. The maze of shadows became a puzzle of torment, each turn leading Johannes further into the heart of the mansion's darkness. The walls seemed to shift, creating a disorienting labyrinth that defied the laws of space and time. The floor beneath him felt uneven, as if the mansion itself conspired to make each step a treacherous journey into the unknown. The dialogue with the Whisperer became more insidious, its words burrowing into Johannes' mind like parasites. It spoke of forgotten sins, of the agony endured by those who dared to challenge the mansion's secrets. The very fabric of reality seemed to fray as Johannes grappled with a malevolent force, his sanity hanging by the thinnest of threads. Amid the disconcerting whispers and the shifting shadows, Johannes stumbled upon fragments of the mansion's gruesome history. Ghostly apparitions replayed scenes of past horrors, faces contorted in agony, eyes that pleaded for release from an eternal torment. The walls dripped with the residual pain of those who had met a grisly fate within the mansion's walls. Tension mounted with each step, the atmosphere growing denser as Johannes approached the heart of the supernatural labyrinth. The mansion's influence manifested in ghastly illusions, distorting reality and toying with Johannes' perception. He questioned the very nature of his reality, wondering if the shadows had consumed him, or if he had become one with the malevolence that permeated the air. As Johannes navigated the maze of shadows, the dialogue with the Whisperer reached a fever pitch. The entity taunted him, revealing the depths of his darkest fears and insecurities. Johannes felt the weight of the mansion bearing down on him, an oppressive force that threatened to crush his spirit. The climax approached with a relentless inevitability, and Johannes could sense that the final confrontation with the Whisperer loomed just beyond the next shadowed corridor. In the heart of the mansion's darkness, surrounded by the echoes of the past, Johannes prepared to face the culmination of his harrowing journey, a battle that would determine whether he emerged from the maze of shadows as a survivor or succumbed to the inexorable grasp of the malevolent force. The mansion's corridors twisted like the frayed edges of Johannes' sanity. His breath came in shallow gasps, the air thick with the malevolence that seemed to seep from the very walls. Unseen eyes followed his every step, shadows coiling and uncoiling with a sinister rhythm. As Johannes delved deeper, the whispers grew louder. The very air seemed to vibrate with the weight of 1,000 secrets, each one clawing at the edges of his consciousness. The voice of the Whisperer echoed through the halls, a symphony of malevolence that burrowed into Johannes' mind. Johannes Blackwood, the voice slithered, the words dripping like venom. You sought the truth, but can you handle it? His surroundings warped, reality itself unraveling like a tapestry in the hands of some unseen puppeteer. Doors materialized and disappeared, leading Johannes in circles that defied the laws of space and time. The oppressive darkness became a tangible force, pressing against him from all sides. Face your fears, the Whisperer intoned, its voice a haunting melody. Johannes stumbled upon a room bathed in an otherworldly glow. Ancient symbols adorned the walls, pulsating with an ominous energy. In the center, a grotesque manifestation of shadows coalesced. The Whisperer in its true form, a formless void with eyes that glowed like dying embers. You cannot escape, the Whisperer hissed, the shadows dancing to its command. Your mind is my playground. Johannes, beads of sweat clinging to his forehead, locked eyes with the eldritch entity. The room seemed to contract, suffocating him in its supernatural grip. Memories long buried clawed their way to the surface, each one a jagged shard of the past. Images flashed before him, The disappearances, the anguish of the mansion's previous victims. The darkness within him intertwined with the shadows, threatening to consume his very essence. In a desperate plea, Johannes clutched his head, attempting to shut out the cacophony of voices that reverberated through the chamber. The Whisperer laughed, a sound that echoed through the ages, a mockery of the fragility of human resilience. "You are but a vessel," it declared, the room pulsating with an ethereal energy. "The whispers in the shadows are eternal." Yet, in the darkest recesses of Johannes' mind, a flicker of defiance ignited. A surge of determination clawed its way through the despair, and with it, a realization: the mansion fed on fear. And fear. The mansion fed on fear. In turn, fed the Whisperer. With newfound strength, Johannes stood tall. "No more," he declared, the words a battle cry against the encroaching darkness. "I am not your pawn." The room convulsed, shadows recoiling from the sheer force of Johannes' defiance. The Whisperer's howls of frustration echoed through the chamber, its form undulating as if struggling to maintain its hold. In a blinding burst of light, the symbols on the walls shattered, dispelling the malevolent energy that bound the room. The mansion itself seemed to groan in protest, as if a force that had dwelled within it for centuries had been expelled. As the shadows retreated, Johannes found himself standing in the midst of a now silent chamber. The oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by an eerie calm. The mansion, once a haven for unspeakable horrors, now stood silent, its secrets laid bare. Johannes emerged from the mansion, the weight of the supernatural ordeal etched into his weary frame. The forest, once a foreboding labyrinth, seemed to part before him, the shadows retreating as if acknowledging his triumph. And so Johannes Blackwood, taxi driver turned unwilling explorer, stepped into the moonlit night, forever changed by the whispers in the wind that echoed through the haunted corridors of the mansion, now left in a desolate silence. The crisp, winter air bit at Scarlett Davis's cheeks as she peered out from the frosted window of the vintage Chevrolet. Tall, skeletal trees stood sentinel along the winding path, leading to the isolated cabin, their bare branches rattling like ancient bones in the cold breeze. Snow, pristine and untouched, blanketed the ground in a dazzling white expanse, masking the secrets that lay beneath. Scarlett's hazel eyes sparkled with anticipation, and her gloved fingers tapped rhythmically on the steering wheel. Beside her, her husband Robert gazed out at the snow-covered landscape, a smile playing on his lips. In the back seat, Emily and Thomas squirmed with excitement, their breath creating delicate frost patterns on the windows. As the cabin loomed into view, nestled between towering pines, Scarlett couldn't help but marvel at its rustic charm. The aged wood exuded a warmth that seemed to defy the winter chill. Smoke lazily spiraled from the chimney, promising a refugee from the biting cold outside. The crunch of tires on the snow announced their arrival. Scarlett cut the engine, and a silence fell over the family as they stared at the cabin, a mixture of awe and trepidation. A crow cawed from a nearby branch, its black silhouette a stark contrast against the snowy backdrop. Unbeknownst to them, shadows slithered across the edges of the cabin, dancing a silent, macabre waltz. Whispers like ghostly echoes of a forgotten past murmured through the air. Scarlett felt a chill crawl down her spine, but she brushed it off as a product of the desolate beauty that surrounded them. Robert, with a chivalrous grin, opened the car door for Scarlett. She stepped onto the snow, her boots sinking into the fluffy surface with a soft crunch. The children tumbled out after her, their laughter echoing in the crisp air. Together, the Davis family approached the cabin's creaking door. Excitement etched across their faces. Scarlett couldn't shake the feeling that the cabin held secrets, secrets that the ancient pines and the swirling snow sought to conceal. Little did they know, their vacation in this secluded refuge was about to unveil a chilling tale that had long been imprisoned in the shadows. The mountain cabin, a time-worn relic nestled in the frost-bitten heart of the Appalachians, exhaled secrets beneath the weight of freshly fallen snow. As the Davis family settled into their new abode, the air hummed with an unsettling stillness, interrupted only by the muffled crunch of footsteps on the icy ground. Scarlett, a torchbearer of curiosity, couldn't escape the allure of the cabin's mysteries. Her investigative instincts, dormant even in the quietest moments, beckoned her towards the shadows flickering along the cabin walls. Outside, the wind whispered ancient tales. Secrets carried on the chill that swept through the desolate landscape. That night, as the family huddled around the hearth, shadows danced along the edges of the room, defying the feeble glow of the firelight. Scarlett, keenly aware of the subtle shifts in the atmosphere, glanced at her husband, Robert, whose eyes reflected both wonder and unease. Emily, their teenage daughter, sat with a sketch pad in hand, attempting to capture the enigma of the cabin on paper. Her pencil strokes mirrored the flickering shadows, as if the very essence of the cabin resisted capture, slipping through the grasp of artistic interpretation. Thomas, the youngest, gazed wide-eyed, at the window, where frost patterns painted a spectral tableau. The wind, carrying the whispers of generations past, seemed to beckon him into the darkness beyond the pane. Later that night, when the cabin slept beneath the silver glow of a full moon, Scarlett, driven by an insatiable need to unravel the unknown, tiptoed into the frosty silence. The floor creaked beneath her every step, a symphony of trepidation echoing through the frozen corridors. Outside, the world stood suspended in a wintry trance. The trees, eternally vigilant sentinels, bore witness to Scarlett's solitary journey. The snow crunched beneath her boots, each step a muffled drumbeat in the heart of an ancient wilderness. The wind, like an ethereal guide, whispered fragmented tales, a lament of the land, a saga of sorrow, and a warning carried from time immemorial. Scarlett, with a lantern casting long shadows in her wake, followed the cryptic trail of echoes into the depths of the forest. As the night wore on, Scarlett's breath materialized in the frigid air, and the boundary between reality and the supernatural blurred. Shadows lengthened and intertwined, converging into an otherworldly dance that mirrored the secrets the mountain whispered. In the heart of the wilderness, Scarlett stood at the crossroads of revelation and peril. The wind, now a chorus of fragmented voices, carried the weight of the cabin's history, the tragedy, the betrayal, and the spectral force that stirred with a hunger for resolution. And as Scarlett listened to the whispers in the wind, she unwittingly unfurled the ancient scroll of the cabin's past, setting into motion a sequence of events that would bind her family to the shadows and secrets buried beneath the snow-covered peaks. The cabin's time-worn floorboards groaned underfoot as Scarlett traversed the dimly lit space, a silent witness to the unresolved tensions that lingered within its walls. Shadows danced on the periphery, their elusive movements mirroring the strained relationships within the Davis family. Emily, the teenage daughter with a penchant for rebellion, sat hunched near the fireplace, her eyes fixed on the flickering flames that cast eerie reflections on the cabin walls. The glow highlighted the tension etched into the lines of her parents' faces. Scarlett, driven by her relentless pursuit of truth, and Robert, a supportive but skeptical husband. Thomas, the youngest of the Davis children, hovered on the fringes, caught in the crossfire of his parents' unspoken conflicts. His wide-eyed innocence belied the unease that permeated the air. The malevolent force, sensing the fractures, whispered sinister suggestions that wormed their way into the family's subconscious. Scarlett, fueled by her investigative instincts, feverishly pored over the aged pages of dusty journals found in a hidden corner of the cabin. Each faded word unraveled a thread of the cabin's dark history, pulling her deeper into a web of malevolence. The night air outside seemed to seep through the cabin's cracks, carrying with it the weight of the supernatural. As the family gathered for a seemingly innocuous meal, the oppressive atmosphere amplified every unspoken grievance. The malevolent force, now manifesting as shadows that crept along the walls, orchestrated a symphony of unease. Dinner conversations turned into subtle interrogations, Scarlett's probing questions tearing at the fabric of familial bonds. Emily's defiance clashed with Robert's attempts to maintain a semblance of normalcy, while Thomas retreated into a world of his own, haunted by the ever-present shadows. The malevolent force reveled in the discord it sowed. It whispered into Scarlett's ears, exploiting her determination to unearth the truth and turning it into a weapon against her own family. The shadows deepened, casting elongated fingers that seemed to reach for the hearts of the Davis family. As the night wore on, the cabin felt like a pressure cooker of suppressed emotions, and the malevolent force fed off the escalating tensions. In the flickering candlelight, Scarlett glimpsed the shadows taking shape, sinister silhouettes that mirrored the darker aspects of each family member's soul. The night air grew colder, the fire dimming despite the ample logs Scarlett had thrown into its hungry maw. Unbeknownst to the Davis family, the malevolent force reveled in its subtle victory, laying the groundwork for a descent into madness that would test the bonds of love and trust woven into the fabric of family. The echoes of strained conversations lingered like ghostly whispers, as the cabin, now a crucible of malevolence, awaited the next act in this nightmarish symphony of shadows and familial strife. The night hung heavy around the isolated cabin, its time-worn beams creaking under the burden of a dark secret. Scarlett, driven by a relentless curiosity, found herself drawn to the flickering shadows that danced ominously on the cabin walls. The air inside felt thick with tension, a palpable unease that seemed to intensify with every passing moment. As the family huddled in the dimly lit living room, the shadows slithered and coiled, manifesting into ethereal entities that seemed to defy the laws of nature. Scarlett's breath caught as she watched the shadows take shape, coalescing into a spectral form that hovered before her like a malevolent wraith. "Scarlett Davis," a disembodied voice echoed, resonating with an otherworldly chill. "You have awakened the dormant spirits of this cursed place." The room seemed to constrict around Scarlett, the weight of the shadows pressing against her chest. A cold sweat broke across her forehead as she found herself unable to tear her gaze away from the ghastly apparition before her. "What do you want?" Scarlett demanded, her voice quivering with a mixture of fear and defiance. The shadows responded with a chorus of whispers, each syllable dripping with ancient resentment. The room seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy as the shadows revealed the tragic tale of a family long forgotten. Their fates intertwined with the very wood and stone of the cabin. This land was stained with blood, and the curse laid upon it demands retribution, the shadowy figure intoned. Your family must pay the price for the sins of those who came before. Scarlett's eyes widened with horror as the shadows projected haunting images on the cabin walls. Scenes of despair, betrayal, and a spectral agony that transcended the bounds of the living. It was a narrative etched in the very fabric of the cabin, and Scarlett realized that her family had unwittingly become players in a malevolent drama, centuries in the making. The shadows slithered closer, tendrils of darkness reaching out like phantom hands. Scarlett felt an icy grip around her heart as the entity man's echoed in her mind. The choice before her family was clear. Submit to the ancient curse or face unimaginable consequences. As Scarlett struggled to comprehend the gravity of their situation, the shadows retreated, leaving the living room cloaked in an oppressive silence. The family was left alone, haunted by the revelations of a vengeful force that had emerged from the shadows, a force demanding justice for sins committed long ago. The cabin, now imbued with a suffocating malevolence, seemed to mock their vulnerability. Scarlet, her family, and the dark secrets of the cabin were entwined in a dance of shadows, the outcome of which remained uncertain in the dead of that foreboding night. The night fell like a shroud over the isolated cabin, nestled in the heart of the snow-laden Appalachian Mountains. Scarlet Davis, a woman of unwavering determination, found herself entangled in a web of shadows and whispers that seemed to materialize from the very bones of the ancient forest. As the clock ticked towards midnight, the chill in the air grew palpable. Scarlet, fueled by her journalistic instincts, sat huddled in the dimly lit living room. Shadows danced on the walls, their sinuous movements mirroring the tendrils of fear creeping into the hearts of the Davis family. The creaking of the cabin seemed to harmonize with the ominous whispers that echoed through the corridors. Emily and Thomas, usually inseparable, now cast furtive glances at one another, their youthful innocence replaced by a newfound unease. Robert, a pillar of stoicism, found his composure unraveling with each passing moment. The tension hung thick in the air, manifesting as an invisible force tightening its grip around the family's collective psyche. Scarlett's investigation had led her to an old weathered journal hidden within the cabin's dusty attic. Its brittle pages unfolded a tragic tale of forbidden love, betrayal, and a curse that transcended generations. As the family delved deeper into the journal's revelations, the malevolent force seized upon their vulnerabilities. The whispers grew more insistent, carrying with them fragments of the past that clawed at the edges of sanity. Shadows coalesced into phantasmal shapes, flickering with malevolent intent. In the flickering candlelight, Scarlett's determined eyes mirrored the struggle within her soul as the weight of the supernatural revelation bore down upon her. In the confined space of the cabin, the boundaries between reality and nightmare blurred. Unearthly moans echoed through the corridors, and ethereal figures materialized in the corners of the room, only to dissolve into wisps of darkness upon a second glance. The family, once bound by love and warmth, now found themselves ensnared in a chilling dance with the otherworldly. Scarlet, haunted by the knowledge she had unearthed, struggled to maintain a facade of control, yet the tendrils of fear slithered into her thoughts, conjuring ghastly visions that played upon the deepest recesses of her mind. The walls seemed to close in, and the cabin, once a refuge, transformed into a labyrinth of perpetual dread. As the night wore on, the malevolent force reveled in the psychological disarray it had sown. The family, teetering on the edge of reason, grappled with the realization that the ancient curse had woven itself into the fabric of their existence. In the flickering candlelight, Scarlett's investigative prowess met its match, as the shadows whispered promises of doom that echoed through the cavernous corridors of the cabin. The descent into madness had begun, and the Davis family stood at the precipice, caught between the fragments of a cursed history and the encroaching darkness that threatened to consume them whole. The cabin groaned under the weight of a silence pregnant with the echoes of malevolence. Scarlet, clutching the tattered remnants of her investigative resolve, stood at the epicenter of the living room, the shadows closing in around her family. The air, thick with the scent of foreboding, seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. The flickering lamplight cast erratic shadows on the cabin's rustic walls, each dance a macabre celebration of the supernatural forces at play. Scarlett's breath hung in the air, visible evidence of the frigid dread enveloping the room. Emily, Thomas, and Robert, their faces etched with terror, stood close, their eyes darting nervously between the shadows that now moved with a sinister purpose. The shadows, personifying the malevolent force, began to coalesce into a grotesque silhouette at the cabin's heart. A voice, as old as the mountains themselves, echoed through the room, weaving through the creaks of the time-worn floorboards. "Scarlet Davis, seeker of truths," the voice intoned, resonating with the weight of centuries. "You have uncovered the veiled past, but the price must be paid." Scarlett's heart pounded in rhythm with the ethereal voice. her every instinct urging her to flee. Yet a tenacious determination flickered in her eyes as she confronted the shadows with an unwavering gaze. "What do you want?" Scarlet demanded, her voice a mere whisper against the spectral wind. The shadows twisted and contorted, taking on the semblance of tormented faces and ghostly figures. The voice, a lamentation woven into the very fabric of the cabin, continued its haunting narrative. "I seek retribution for the injustices committed upon this sacred ground," it declared. "Blood calls for blood, and the cycle must be unbroken." Scarlet, grappling with the weight of the ancient curse, glanced at her family. Their faces mirrored the terror etched into her own soul. Emily clutched a family heirloom, a locket passed down through generations, its delicate chain now a lifeline in this descent into the supernatural. A spectral wind swept through the cabin, extinguishing the feeble lamplight. Darkness enveloped the room, broken only by the haunting glow of the shadows. The voice, now a chorus of anguished whispers, echoed a dire ultimatum. "Give in, Scarlet Davis, or witness the ruin of those you hold dear." Scarlet, her hands trembling, felt the weight of the choice that hung in the air. In the suffocating darkness, she glimpsed the faces of her family, eyes pleading for salvation. Unsheathing a flickering flashlight, Scarlet took a faltering step forward, determined to break the cycle that bound the cabin to its malevolent past. The shadows recoiled, a symphony of anguished wails echoing through the cabin. The locket in Emily's grasp began to glow, a radiant beacon against the encroaching darkness. The malevolent force, weakened by Scarlet's resistance, writhed in a final, desperate attempt to claim its due. With a guttural roar, the shadows dissipated, leaving the cabin in eerie silence. The lamplight flickered back to life, revealing Scarlet and her family standing amidst the aftermath of their supernatural confrontation. The weight of the curse had lifted, but the scars of their ordeal lingered in the haunted recesses of their eyes. As Scarlet embraced her family, the cabin seemed to exhale, releasing the specter of malevolence that had held it captive. The wind outside, once a harbinger of doom, now carried the whispers of a distant, vanquished force. The Davis family, scarred but united, stepped out of the cabin, leaving behind the shadows that had sought to claim them. The mountains, witness to centuries of spectral stories, sighed in relief, their secrets buried once more beneath the veil of snow and time. Yet the echoes of the malevolent force lingered, a chilling reminder of the thin line between curiosity and the supernatural.